Facing the Dragon, dealing with China. That's the topic of this essay. And it begins 4 decades ago when, within the space of 6 days, Henry Kissinger for America and Gough Whitlam for Australia sat down with Zhou Enlai. The leaders of the countries had never done this with China, and here it all happened with the 2 countries within a week. And I had a bird's eye view because I had been associated with Mr. Whitlam in the Labour Party here, and because I'd been a student of Henry Kissinger's. So I've drawn on those contacts and those memories to look at the situation right now in China and in the Asia Pacific, where countries like Australia and others in the region, all in awe of China's economic progress, and yet some disquiet at what China's going to do with its growing power. So President Nixon felt it was better to deal with China than not to deal with it, and to take China as is. And for Australia, it seemed time to put the People's Republic of China into an overall Asia policy. And in my paper, I go into the themes that arose from that. One theme is how you balance the alliance, in our case the alliance with the US, with a regional giant like China. How do you balance the claims of security against the claims of prosperity? How do you handle a triangle? This was America's big problem, or big opportunity, because the Soviet Union at that time and China and the US formed a triangle. And then there are other triangles, sometimes involving Japan. And the 2 countries' China policies, I compare them in this essay. I compare American idealism with Australian realism. Goes back to the way the 2 countries were founded. The Pilgrims came praying to the United States, and the settlers came to Australia battling nature. So it produced a questing American spirit and a pragmatic Australian spirit. And the issues today come back to haunt the United States. They treated China as a security problem, but now China, as for Australia, is a major economic partner. And in this period, China has eclipsed Japan, and to become the 2nd economic power in the world. I go into the prospects for the future of our China policy. Our China policy depends on relations between Japan and China. Our China policy depends on whether the United States has the will and the capacity to form a leadership position, as it's done for 40 years, by virtue of having Japan and China held in balance by the US superior power. Can that go on? Then it depends on the political system in China. They still have an old politics, which I call it an old politics in the paper. They've got a new economy, a new society of cosmopolitan young people, but they have an authoritarian politics. How will they work out that contradiction? And it also depends, our China policy, on the ambiguities in China's relation to the region. I explain that China is a civilization and an empire as well as a nation. Now, China as an empire is still a factor for small neighbours, Laos, Cambodia, even for Korea and Vietnam, that were once under the thumb of China. So they see this other side of China. It's not a problem for Australia, still less for the US. But as China gains in its power, the issue of will China resume its imperial presumptions, or will they really become just one nation among others? That remains a question for a number of Asia-Pacific countries. It's my hope, expressed in the essay, that the US and China can have a peaceful competition, not treating each other as a threat, but also not trying to combine together and rule the world, which wouldn't go down too well with Europe, with Japan, and probably even with Australia. But a peaceful rivalry that comes from a sense of balance, or what I call in Facing the Dragon, an equilibrium. And it's that equilibrium that for the past 30 years or so has produced the extraordinary economic development in our region. I hope it continues.